Welcome back to our course on international law and diplomacy. Today we will examine the complex relationship between international law and domestic law, two legal systems that often intersect and influence one another. We will explore how international law impacts domestic legal frameworks and the mechanisms through which states incorporate and implement international obligations. The dualist and monist approaches. There are two main theories regarding the relationship between international and domestic law. Dualism. This theory views international and domestic law as separate and distinct legal systems. Under dualism, international law cannot directly create rights or obligations for individuals within a state unless it is specifically incorporated into domestic law through legislation or other mechanisms. This approach emphasizes state sovereignty and the autonomy of domestic legal orders. Monism. This theory, in contrast, posits that international and domestic law are a part of a single unified legal system. International law is considered superior to domestic law, and it can directly apply within a state's legal system without the need for explicit incorporation. This approach prioritizes the supremacy of international law and its direct effect on individuals. In practice, most states adopt a hybrid approach, incorporating elements of both dualism and monism. The specific relationship between international and domestic law varies depending on a state's constitutional framework, legal traditions, and political preferences. Incorporation and implementation of international law. States use various mechanisms to incorporate and implement international law obligations into their domestic legal systems. Legislative incorporation. This involves enacting legislation that explicitly adopts the provisions of an international treaty or customary rule into domestic law. This method provides clarity and ensures the direct applicability of international law within the state. Judicial incorporation. Courts may interpret domestic law in light of international legal principles and obligations. This can occur throughout the direct application of international law, where it is deemed self-executing, or through the interpretation of domestic law in conformity with international law. Constitutional incorporation. Some states have constitutional provisions that automatically incorporate certain international treaties or customary rules into domestic law. This ensures the supremacy of international law over conflicting domestic law. The challenges and opportunities of international-domestic law relationship. The relationship between international and domestic law presents both challenges and opportunities. Challenges. Conflicts can arise when international and domestic laws clash, raising questions of legal hierarchy and enforcement. Additionally, the incorporation and implementation of international law can be complex, requiring careful consideration of legal traditions and political sensitivities. Opportunities. The incorporation of international law can enhance domestic legal frameworks, promoting human rights, environmental protection, and economic development. It can also foster cooperation and harmony between states, contributing to a more stable and just international order.